Ladies and gentlemen, so excited for today's repeat guest. She's got a book called When Religion Hurts You. It's Dr. Laura Anderson.
Yo, yo.
How are you?
Hey.
Boy, we've
good.
upgraded, haven't we?
I know. It's so much nicer than whatever the car was that you rented last time.
I had you in one of those compact rental cars.
Yeah.
Those rental cars are always the shittiest cars.
They really are, even when they upgrade you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you get a free upgrade to like our special one.
No matter what they say, they call it an upgrade.
Yeah.
They're like, we've upgraded you to an Astro minivan. And I'm like, I'm not.
And it's like they have the wood paneling on the side.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, yeah,
I'm like, thank you for spit shining that for me.
Yeah.
They upgraded me to a Dodge Charger when we were in Hawaii.
Oh,
we were on these windy little roads trying to see waterfalls, and they gave us a boat. A Dodge Charger is it's like a two-door SUV.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I was like, thanks for the upgrade, guys. I would have taken a Mazda Miata.
The last thing that you want to be driving.
So we met you in person when we interviewed you last, when we were touring homes. Did you think we would have actually moved here?
I was secretly hoping. And back then, Tasha's, her number one house was actually not the house that you ended up in. And I was secretly hoping that would not be it.
Yeah. Well, it was cheaper.
Yeah, and it looked good on the outside.
Yeah.
But I was like, I just don't think you're going to like the neighborhood.
They did like a cheap kitchen install, so we would have had to do that. And next thing you know, we probably could have done $250,000 in
Yeah, easily. But
so we liked this one that we found. We were just like, it's a little more expensive. We can't. We did the whole we're not worth it type of thing.
Oh, but here's the funny thing, and I didn't realize this until your baby shower. I used to have a client who lived in that neighborhood.
Oh, yeah?
So I used to do in-home family therapy. And I would drive to people's homes to do therapy. And so I had a client who lived there. And this was not the reason that I saw this person, but her sole goal in life was to be on Teen Mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She was still a teen, or?
She was still a teen.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, but
How can you afford to be a teen mom?
I don't know, but it looks so glamorous.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, this was what, 12, 13 years ago. And so this is like, reality TV is brand new at this point. And so she thought that would be absolutely amazing. She's probably 30 now.
Oh my gosh, she's old. She's an old 30 now.
I don't think she actually became one.
I was sneakily hoping you were going to say you used to date a dad who lived in our neighborhood.
It's actually possible.
Because you've lived here for a long time.
Yeah, I've been here almost 15 years.
Is there like a roster of neighborhoods you can't go to now?
Not in Mount Juliet area, but in Nashville, yes, most certainly.
When I lived in New York, I'd be like, well, no going to the Upper West Side anymore. Why? Well, because I cried at a Panini Grill, that's why. And I see the person in a bodega again.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the different areas of Nashville?
A little bit.
Okay, yeah. So there's like a lot of East Nashville places that I don't go to.
I kind of feel like East Nashville is the Midwest home for the Walk of Shame.
Yeah.
Because the homes are kind of close together. It's like where you live in your 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, lots of those.
A lot of gray zones, as it were,
yes.
Areas that you would rather not be in.
Yeah, just lots of memories.
My wife and I, we ran into her ex on a hike when we just started dating.
Oh.
And it was new in the relationship where I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And there was two things going on. One, I was super awkward because I was there with like the guy's old dog. It was always her dog, but it was like this. He was like the previous dog dad, and then, but then the comedian in me, from like the third person perspective, from like God's point of view, the comedian was like, "Oh, this is good." I'm sweating. She's like, "Hey, how are you?" Doing that upper octave voice.
Yep, yeah, six octaves higher.
And then we walked for like another quarter mile, not talking, and I was like, that was your ex-boyfriend, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And if it was reversed, I think it's funny because she once had an audition with someone that was my ex. And she put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because, like, what are you going to do? We live in a city of 15 million people. Like, you're going to run into somebody even with that size. It's going to happen. Yeah.
And this is like, Nashville compared to, New York is so tiny. You're going to run into people.
You're going to run into people. But at least here you're insulated by it not being like a walking town. New York, you run into everybody.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people you walk by on a path every single day. So.
Well, and in Nashville, you are connected to everybody. Like there's that, 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
So you can make connections to everybody. You're like, oh, do you know this person? I'm like, yes, from this to this to this to this, and now we're all connected through everyone. Like, you may have had, like, I know other people on your podcast by way of, like, you know,
the area
of, yes,
sure.
Absolutely.
It's weird because I understand why it's kind of a hotbed area to live, because it does have good energy, but then I can go home and mow the lawn. You saw me kind of in just like real dad mode right there. So last time we interviewed you, we talked about religious trauma, purity culture, and we can still talk about that. But we've obviously been in touch. You were at the baby shower, which hopefully wasn't as lame as most baby showers.
I had a great time.
I feel like they're generally horrible when they play those stupid baby games, but...
Well, I sat inside with Christina Mandrell and Braden, and we came up with many baby names.
Oh, good.
For you. So we're very convinced that you will be choosing one of ours.
Wait, were you the one who came up with Chandler?
Obviously, because could that be any cuter?
So we made that joke before we read the tagline, and it said Chandler, and we were like, oh, it can't be, it's because of the friends, and then it was description. Yeah. Could that not be any cuter? Chandler's my sister's middle name.
Oh, really? Okay, because my dog's name is Phoebe, and I love the show Friends, and so that's why I was like, oh, Chandler, of course.
There you go. What about Joey?
I mean, Joey could work.
Joey's a cute name.
It's very cute.
My buddy from New York was named Joey, and he was a big player, so Joey can go both ways. Joey can be a fuckboy name.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
But then you can be Joseph.
How you raise them.
Yeah. So anyhow, I saw your Instagram. You posted you went deep. You posted about your own humanity.
Yeah.
Tell me, I want to ask you a bunch of questions about this, because you opened the can of worms. And as a therapist, you mentioned, you kind of trained yourself to, like, maybe not make yourself the story, but now you're seeing the humanity when you do share. So what's that process been like?
Yeah, it's something that I've been working on with a friend / somebody that I work with for social media, doing some consulting work just with, like, marketing and talking about just being vulnerable on social media. It's something that as therapists we're not really trained to do, and yet being human and relationship is not what sells in terms of, like, marketing, but just that's what heals us. It's what connects us. It's what makes us feel like we're okay in this world.
Yeah, it's like the glue that binds you to somebody else. You can tell someone how to feel, but if you show them what you've been through, it's
and I think part of, like, I never have a problem with my clients and sharing bits and pieces of who I am, but on a big social media platform, you're putting yourself out there, and people can say whatever they want, and I haven't always been great about that. Yeah.
The internet's kind of cruel, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was funny because the week before that, I had actually shared something on my stories, and it was about the last time I had gone to church. And I think I was sharing it was like the last Easter I went to church was like over a decade ago or something like that, and I happened to have a picture of it. And so I shared it and had some commentary, and I got a lot of feedback, like it was really special to hear about that. And so I was like, oh, damn it, people like hearing, stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll share more. And, it's just amazing that, like I said, therapists aren't often encouraged to be open about that stuff. We're supposed to be that professional behind the clipboard, and
which has to be tough, because how do you take inventory when you're feeling pain? And it's like the giving tree in a way.
It is. And I'm a real human. I mean, and I have friends, and I've got great relationships and people that, like, sit with me in that, and I certainly don't feel like I need to exploit myself on a social media platform, but I also do want to be seen as a human, and I don't want to be seen as some person who has their entire life together.
Well, therapy is like it's obviously one-on-one consultation, whereas like sharing your life on social media, that's like selling a course to people that can go buy it. It's like you can reach more people. Yeah. And that's why whenever people get upset at, like, a Bachelor alumni not going back to their old profession, I'm like, well, now they've got a platform where they can talk about mental health in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, so this is the part where I'm just going to order something. Do you want a water or anything else?
Actually, water would be great.
Hi, can I do a venti cold brew with a splash of half and half and a grande water?
What else for you?
Can I just get no sugar in the cold brew?
Of course. What else for you?
That'll be it. Thank you. I like to get a venti so that way I can save some for later. That's the true crackhead in me. Which, by the way, someone in my audience Postmated me venti cold brews from Costco. Like the pre-made concentrate mix.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
Me neither. I was like, these people are so kind. But yeah, what was there like a revelation like I need to be sharing more of my life, or was it kind of like, oh, this actually kind of feels good?
Well, so okay, there had been this trend on social media with people saying like, quote unquote, social media is fake, which that's probably not actually the right word to use. I think curated might be a better word to use. It's highly curated. You get to decide what you put on there. And then they started sharing like, here's some of the things that I don't typically share. And so I was like, I think I might do this, and so I've picked a couple things that I don't typically talk about, and it happened to be things about like my relationship status and just fears that I have around like being single or fearing that I'm too much for somebody to quote unquote handle, to be around,
Why do you feel like you're too much?
Why do I feel like I'm too much? History has taught me that, You mean
because the men have been like, I can't handle this?
Yeah, I mean, I have had that said to me before, and which
is like a very simple cop-out for a guy.
I think so. I mean, I know I'm a lot, and I don't actually mean that in a disparaging way. Like, my muchness is what makes me unique, and I actually don't shy away from that. But I have a lot to give, and I expect a lot from others as well. And
by the way, that's exactly what Caitlin Bristow was saying last week, which is she sets the bar so high for other people.
Yeah.
And I think, you tell me, but what I've been told from people is that you got to lower the bar because people will never live up to your expectations. Which I'm like, cool, but I also want a litmus test for who can hang with me.
Well, and that's just it. And it's like, I don't put my bar for somebody else so high that it's like unattainable, but I'm just like you gotta give, like you gotta try. Like I don't want to like lower my expectation of like, hey, I'm gonna give 100% and you give 20%.
So what's a good example of something that is obvious to you when someone else isn't trying? And is there a way to tell them like, hey, I need you to be here when when the bat phone calls? Like, what are like the well, hold on, we're about to be interrupted here. Yeah. But super heavy convo. Yeah, and they were like, we'll get some cold foam whip with that, please. Exactly. By the way, I give half my earnings to this Starbucks. This is they finally started to get to know me, which is like all I want in life is for the diner I go to know me.
I love that.
So leaving LA. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Good. Can we get a couple straws for that? Huh? Can I get a couple straws for that? Yeah. Thank you. And then like leaving LA after 10 years, we got everyone knew us, like multiple diners. There you go. Thank you so much.
I don't think I've been to this Starbucks.
You too. This is different than the one that we went to last time.
I go to the one that's closer to my house.
There's yours. Was Grande okay? I didn't want to
Yeah, that's totally fine. Plus I have my Diet Coke.
the Venti is only like a quarter more than the Grande. So like the cheap version of me is like, what are we doing?
Yeah, of course.
I'm doing a tall cold brew. I want to get a bucket of cold brew. So anyway, I didn't mean to be spacey there. No. I just didn't want to get too deep.
So what was your question again?
So are there common themes that you notice that men are lacking when you're dating them, or maybe not just men but friends or things like that?
So I think like emotional availability is one of them, like willing to have like emotional connections, conversation, like sit in the hard stuff. And like for me, I don't need you to like solve the stuff for me. I just need you to be there, to be that witness with me.
Oh boy, and men of course just want to solve it. I mean, it's in the DNA.
And I think I've found that that's very hard for people to do. Like I said, I like be there, just like be in that. You don't have to solve it, but own your part in it. The last partner that I was with, and this was something that I mentioned in that post too, like one of the things that's been really difficult. I don't talk about this as much on social media, and in part because it involves somebody else. They haven't agreed for me to share their story on a platform. Like I broke up with a partner. He moved out. That's caused a lot of emotional hardship, financial hardship, those sorts of things. Like they couldn't show up in a way that, like they could own their stuff, take responsibility. Saying I love you is not the same as like owning their part, taking responsibility, making amends, things
so
like that.
I mean, as far as love languages go, would that mean you're less affirmations and more acts of service, or is it just simply that the words don't mean anything to you if it's not followed up?
Yes. In this case, it really wasn't about like love languages. It was about like, hey, you've done or said this thing to me. It's about taking responsibility of, hey, I shouldn't have said that. That was a really hurtful thing or really hurtful accusation that I just made about you. And I did that from a place where I was triggered or wounded or hurt. And I need to take responsibility for that. I need to figure out what was happening in me. That was wrong of me to say that. And I'm so sorry. And I'm going to figure out what happened.
Do you feel like you're quick to forgive, but like it has to come out of them?
If they're to do that and then change their actions, absolutely.
Yeah. And then how long do you live with that before you make the tough decision to realize they're not going to be changed?
I'll give you a couple chances. Yeah. Because I think if you apologize, but you don't actually change, that to me feels actually a lot like manipulation. And maybe not even overt manipulation, like you're trying to be like really gross about it, but just like, like you got to change at some point.
Yeah, and there might be some like muscle memory that's like, okay, I'm slipping, but I'm trying. But you can probably take inventory. No, I feel like a lot of people don't know what their own boundaries are, so they just get mad at their mom, and it's like, well, have you even let your mom know what your boundaries are, and then maybe see? Yeah. Now I find that parents get super defensive. But that's like their own issue. Yes. I think our generation, I know all my boomers out there are give me the 1-star reviews as we write. We're not defensive yet. Tell that to the 1-star reviews when I even mention something outside of your viewpoint. But I'm just like poking. See, I can't help but poke them. But like, it's like I've had to like, if I ever try to like share boundaries with my mom, I'll have to like really preface it and be so sensitive. No, you did your best. I know. Like I have to mother her.
It's true.
Because there's so much like maybe bitterness that, I don't know, her youth was robbed trying to be a parent. I don't know.
Yes.
But I feel like we're both kind of like elder millennials, and I feel as though we're of the generation that's finally like, no, let's figure this out. Let's not pass this down. Like let's figure out how to talk to each other. And it doesn't mean so as a therapist, does that make it harder though to because you can only analyze what's coming through your eyes, but you can't really give him therapy because he's part of your problem. So how does that work as a therapist?
It's hard. I mean, I have a lot of space I don't expect that of anybody in my life, like friends included. Like I'm in a variety of different relationships with people in my life, and I'm not their therapist. I'm their friend. And so I don't expect that people are like at a certain level of health in their own life in order to be in relationship with me. But I'm a human too. Like I'm not like I have my own flaws, and I have to be put in check, and I have to do my own work. And so it is sometimes hard though, because there is a different thought pattern that I have, and there's a different way that I think about things, and I have to keep myself in check sometimes. And it can make it actually really hard to be in relationships with other people simply because I think about this stuff all day. It's like, it's probably hard to go to a lot of comedy shows, because it's like, you think about these things different, right? So it's like when that's your profession, it's very difficult to interact with it in other facets.
So if you meet new guys, do you feel like you're coming to a conclusion quickly about?
Probably.
Yeah. Which it could be good.
But I think.
But you don't want to waste your time. Like, I mean, imagine if every relationship's on average a year. How many of these do you get a chance at?
But what I always tell people too, because I mean, I cannot tell you how many times like I'll get messages from people and they're like, oh, are you just like psychoanalyzing me? And no, I'm not. But I'm also like, I'm not psychoanalyzing you any more than you are on me, right? Like we all do it to each other, and everybody goes into a first date like analyzing the other person. That's just what we do. I just have better skills.
I don't have the skills you have that probably label a lot of disorders that are going on.
True.
And I hate when people say, I'm empathetic. But like I've spent the last decade going in front of strangers and trying to feel, are they warm right now?
Yeah.
Do they like me? If they don't, here's what I'm going to say to them. And I'm going to change my act around to get them on my side. Not necessarily to be a people pleaser, but because in order to influence the outcome you want, which in stand-up would be telling jokes and having a good time, you got to make sure the table's set. And if the table's not set, you got to do the things you need to do to get there. Now, in a relationship, or at least when you're dating, you expect, most people don't date, most people date with intention, right? They date at our age.
At our age, especially.
Yeah, I mean, younger.
We're like 100, so.
Yeah, I had a girl ghost me in my 20s, and because she was clearly seeing I wasn't like a future fit for her. And I was like, what future? What are you talking about? We're having fun. Come on.
You're like, I just know like the week ahead.
But there is a pressure there, as much as we try to ignore it.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have our time wasted.
It's very true. Yeah. So, yeah, like back to what you were saying, I think that, like with the whole vulnerability thing, like it's hard stuff to talk about. And yet, the more we talk about it, I think we all find out that we're all pretty similar. Like, we all want very similar things. We all struggle with very similar things. We might be on different timetables. Like, sure, you're in your 20s going, future, and a lot of women are like, yeah, future, let's go, right? Like, but at the core of it, we're humans who pretty much want the same things out of life, and we tend to think that we're the only ones, and then we live in a lot of like isolation and shame because we think we're the only ones.
Right.
And the moment that somebody speaks out and says, no, actually, like, I struggle with that too, like there's something there when we just say, yeah, me too, that a little bit of that shame goes away.
That's why when people catch me with my channel where we are now, if they like just show up, they don't know my story. But people that know my story know like the $3 tips that we used to lose our mind over. And when I started sharing with audiences the financial struggle of content creating and trying to make it and all the minimum wage jobs, I built so many connections to people because they too struggled financially. And it's like, hello, we live in a time where it's the biggest wage gap since the Gilded Age, and we're here to talk about it. And if you're on the other side of the story, don't be dismissive. A lot of people out there are really struggling. And just because I bought a Tesla and live in my world, the amount of financial shame I've received this year is insane. And I'm like, okay, fine, but I'm here trying to show people that you can overcome these things. But that bond was created by talking about it. And whether it's a lack, whether it's like a scarcity of finances or love, it's or whatever your true purpose is. That conversation's magnetizing to people.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes like we vilify the things that we want the most, like and so we talk about it, like we're like, oh, I really want this thing. Like, this is what's really important to me, but I'm so scared of it that I won't get it. So I actually vilify it.
Yeah, we throw this negative projection onto it.
Yeah, and so that's like the quote unquote safest way to talk about it is I actually just like vilify it and I make it like the enemy, and that becomes the safest way to talk about it or to like conversate about it.
Yeah, men suck. Well, you want to find a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so...
And men do the same thing with women. Obviously, the incels and the crazy, like, the misogyny that exists.
1,000%.
It's rooted in not getting something you deeply want, which is love, respect, and attention.
Yeah, and it's a way of like.
By the way, this is right near us, and we have a little horse farm right here.
Yeah.
I just can't believe this exists.
Isn't it crazy?
Isn't it wild?
Here's what I'll say, because I've known this area for such a long time. This literally has not changed at all in like years and years, which I think is so cool.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw like a goat. We're like, what is a goat doing over here? It's just so funny. But anyhow, sorry to interrupt.
No, but I think that is a way that we try to avoid vulnerability. Like, because it hurts so bad to get hurt, right? Like we chop vulnerability off at the knees, and we're just like, oh, like men suck, women suck, like whatever. And we say that because if we can just like have that like as a card in our back pocket, then when somebody hurts us, we go, well, we knew they sucked anyways. And so then it hurts like just a little bit less.
That's what's funny when people find, I think, my YouTube audience, I think they're pleasantly surprised by a lot of the generosity that exists. We just had someone raise a GoFundMe to afford one of our journalists to go to this trial in June.
Oh, wow.
And they couldn't believe that within a day, maybe an hour, the money was raised. Like, they couldn't believe that the world can be friendly.
That's
incredible. And I understand, because when you operate in a world that's ugly, you'll find it. The world is multiple things right now. It's the safest and friendliest it's ever been. It is one of the safest times we've ever existed, and yet it feels so toxic because if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
It's all, so that applies to our general sort of joie de vivre or lack thereof, because if you're gonna feel like the world is out to get you,
You'll find
the world
it.
will be out to get you.
Yeah, you find what you're looking for. There really is truth to that.
And so people wonder, how do you not, and I guess we're talking about cynicism, how do you not get cynical, and do you battle with this when you haven't found the thing you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, listen, something that I used to do really well was like what I call spiritual bypassing, just like try to bypass the pain and like oh, it's, the good thing is going to come. Like I feel like religious people in particular are so good at that, like, oh, they're in a better place.
Toxic optimism?
Toxic positivity, like all that. I don't think that that's what leads towards, like getting the best, like manifesting, like things like that. It's not about just like bypassing that. I really do think that you have to go through the hard stuff, like in order to get to the good, because going through the pain like allows us to experience the joy on a greater level. Like we can't fully experience the joy unless we know what the pain feels like too.
Probably why there's a lot of like depressed lottery winners.
I mean, there is that, yeah.
You don't feel like you earned it, or you didn't get to where you didn't complete whatever levels you need to complete to receive. Yeah. And so, I mean, I feel like there has to be a balance. And so I don't love like sometimes the pain of loneliness or the pain or fear that comes with like, oh my gosh, like, will I find somebody again? Or feeling lonely, or like trying to reach out and nobody's there. Like that's not fun. And yet, like I do still go through that. Like I don't have a step-by-step, so do this and then do this and this and this and this. But what I can say is then, like, when I do reach out and there is somebody on the other side of that, or I do experience connection, there is something really beautiful that comes on the other side of it. Or when I can experience like a sense of deep joy or satisfaction, like within myself, I don't know, that hits on a deeper level. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, because it's like you need to learn what your no's are and what doesn't work for you in order to know what does. And a lot of people, a lot of people stay in loveless marriages or unhappy situations for the safety. I always talk about corporate safety, and it's sort of the same with relationships. There's a lot of people in bad jobs they don't like because it dangles them some health care. A lot of people in bad relationships because they're not the breadwinner, and there's financial kind of obligations. So you see how that exists, and you go, well, like, we had someone in our audience, Kat. She came to this stand-up show, and she's in her, I don't know, late 60s, 70s, and she just got divorced, and she's figuring it out now. So, like, everyone who might look like they have it figured out isn't always the case. And I can say, like, for as much as this past year and a half has brought enormous amounts of, like, stress in a variety of ways, like emotional and financial, like with my partner having left, there has also not been a day go by where I have not been deeply relieved that we are not together. Oh, like, yeah. You know what I mean? Do you feel a pressure, though, as a therapist, that your resume isn't white picket fence? And I don't mean this as an insult, because I'm a comedian. I can shit all over my life and then write a bit about it. I don't have, you know what I mean? Sometimes, like, like in terms of like the relationship side of it, there was moments where I was like, oh my God, I'm a therapist, and like there's this like relationship that I can't keep together. But there was also a side of me that goes, but it takes two people. Like I was there and I was really willing to work, and I cannot do work for this other person. Like there has to be, like I was there going, I'm lining up the therapy appointments, saying we can go, and I can't force you to continue living with me. It's like I can't Amazing Race. You can't pull him up his mountain. He needs to climb. And so, and maybe that's the lesson you learn. And so there is the shame with it, or the shame that could come with it, because I'm a therapist. I should be able to make this work. But I also realized in that moment, like
I had a choice to make, and I was not going to choose to take that on for him.
That's amazing. By the way, before we continue, do you trust Elon Musk? Because we are in full self-driving, and this is like a beta program.
Nice,
so,
as we're approaching a police car.
Yeah. Well, it's legal to an extent, but let's just see.
Let's try
see what happens.
Let's
I've been in full self-driving for the last 10 minutes.
I mean, we've done well.
They let us try it out for the month. I would never pay for this.
Okay.
I would never trust anyone else. I'm close to the wheel, but anyhow.
Okay, I think I know where we're at. So yeah, we're good. We're straight shot roads. So
we're all right. I mean,
good.
we took full self-driving through a rotary, which I know most Americans don't know how to drive through a rotary, and it was fine. It actually used the blinker at a time I wouldn't have, and I was like, I think it just taught me how to use a rotary.
It's awesome.
But anyway, so I hope I don't come off judgy, because I have like Tasha and I, what we've realized is she's not the idea of like a yin yang, like opposites attract, that's the simple form, but it's not so much she's my opposite. She just she operates her machine and her soul in a way that's different than mine. Yeah. And I've had to build flanges and doodads to make it connect to her. And she's had to do the same for me. And I've had to take real inventory and show her, like, honey, I will never tell you when I've had too much, when I'm depleted. Like, you just got to figure it out. I'm such a people pleaser. You need to know when, I just need this help because I will, and she's had to show me, like, when she's had enough and when we're just like need to be there to lean on each other. It took a long time to figure that out.
Yeah. And I think part of a relationship is learning that about each other, and then also being comfortable with one another to like share that with each other.
And I guess also be comfortable when they don't provide that for you. When I'm still like, we'll have instances where we've been struggling with family members that don't seem to really value what I do, it feels like, and I value so much that people value what I do. And I've got and what I've been told by others is like, hey, your family aren't your fans, and I've had to really remember that. I
really resonate with that.
Because all you want is just support from your family, and they're like, how's that thing? Like, I love my mom. She still has no idea what I do.
Really?
And I'm like, I got people sending me cold brew coffee.
Yeah.
So look, there it goes on its own.
That's so
pretty fast pickup too.
Yeah.
And I just rail into this car.
I know, especially on this road.
Yeah. No, I keep it, and then I can do this. I can keep it so that it's more average autopilot. Like, let's just do chill autopilot.
Chill autopilot.
I was in assertive mode.
I'm glad they don't have like an aggressive mode.
Yeah. Just call it female, angry female mode. So I try to be a blueprint for what works for me, but I've got plenty that doesn't work, and I'm like, I just think my threshold for pain is so high that I take a lot of abuse by reading comments online, by not having my own boundaries with audience, in ways that I'm like, I feel like if I was any weaker of a person, I wouldn't have put myself in this position. But I'm like, I've almost accepted some of these norms that exist. That it's a little aggressive on the braking, and not bad though. Anyway, so I'll take it off just so it doesn't bother you.
I actually, the first time I rode in a Tesla was in LA, like when I was there for graduation, my PhD graduation, and it was on like assertive, like autopilot or whatever.
That should be like a metaphor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for life. Like, do you want to be assertive or not? Find out what works for you. We're in chill mode. It's a Saturday. So anyway, I don't mean to make it about me, but as a case study, I've had to be like, okay, I've got people out there obviously threatening to sue me for millions of dollars at this point. And I need to find a way to separate the part of my brain that is reactionary and fearful and the part that is logical and loving, and understand that that they can't take away from me the things that all make me happy. Because it's not the Tesla, it's not the house, it's my connections and my people, and you can't pull me off of stage, and you can't do all those things. So the fear of having it all taken away is really not valid, because it can't be taken away, and yet you still play into those fears. I
think that's it though, because like there are many people whose happiness is found in the stuff. And when your okayness and identity is found in the things around you, then that's a very fearful place to live in.
Because it all can be taken away.
Because it literally could be taken away.
One tornado, it's gone.
Exactly. Or one wrong comment on a social media post and you're canceled, or one Jane Doe who comes after all of your stuff and it's gone, right? And it's like, but when your sense of happiness and joy and satisfaction is found in your own internal sense of safety and stability and your connections, like, I mean, it would suck if this was taken away, but you're like, but I'm okay.
But every threat to have things taken away from me has been met with an army of love.
Right.
From all these people.
Yeah.
And you just go, oh my gosh, while I'm not playing a victim, I get to see people that support me when they feel that I've been sort of put at risk.
And you've watched people show up for you like over and over and over again.
The tears people have shed at stand-up shows, it's like you do become like you do go like you can feel this wave of like warm energy from people.
Those are such cool moments. I
wish I could bottle that up and share it with people, because I don't know if everyone like understands that, but it's the product of putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And like you said, other people going like, I resonate.
I flew out to Virginia this past week to do a speaking gig, and it's the first one I've gotten to do in person, like since my book published. And so, because I've only ever done online stuff. And my friend pointed this out, because I didn't, so afterwards, they're like, oh, if you want to buy a book or like just, share something with me or whatever, you can. And all these people rushed the stage and I was a little bit overwhelmed. I'm very introverted. But I was like, this is kind of cool. And the organizer of the event, the day after we were kind of processing a couple things, he's like, it was so cool. People just like came up and shared like a 1 or 2 minute story with you.
Yeah.
Like how...
Which they prepared and they thought about.
Right. And I was like so touched by it, right? Yeah. Like, and even though I'm very introverted, I was like very energized by that.
But it's like they're you said earlier you wanted someone to show up for you.
Yeah.
And obviously we want that in a relationship.
Yeah.
But to see people show up when you might not have expected, you're like, oh,
right.
They're referencing a chapter, or they're doing all these things.
And it's one of those things, and my friend pointed this out. He's like, we do this work and you sit behind a computer and you're like, in my case, I work with my clients. I love my clients. And I'm just like, we do our work together and that's great. And I know I have an impact, and they tell me from time to time, and that's great. I don't expect them to like oogle over me. That's whatever. And that I just go about my day. And he's like, but what you do has an impact beyond that. You just got to see like a little glimpse of that. And that's so true. And like, it's so wonderful to have those moments, because you just never know like the impact that you have on people, and to like have this community of people that are like, I'm in this with you, like you've touched them, they're in this,
and it's like lightning that spreads out, because you then see sub communities form. I felt like a proud dad when I found out that my Patreon had a chat room, because there's chat rooms in all these other rooms, and like I'm like it's like functioning. The moderators like Bruce are Bruce is a moderator. He's a good guy. He knows when someone's crossed the line, but he also knows it's important to me to let people share their emotions and not ban people, because so like all of these, it's like, oh, there's like a beating heart to when you form your boundaries and share who you are, because then other people can sort of either meet you there or not. Now in a relationship, you want them to meet you there, but in real life, the people that go, while they do like to tell you when they leave, I'm leaving, bye.
That's so funny to me. I'm like, okay, cool.
But for every one of those, there's 1,000 that show up, and you go, like my Patreon, which Patreon's just a slight indicator, because it's people that are donating some money, so like that's support. They went from, for several years it was hovering around 22 people, and then it went, I don't know what's up now, 1,700 or whatever. It's like at a different level now, where I can't remember everyone's name, but then when I get to meet them, like you said, I get a lot of the dads, the husbands, when I was doing this meet and greet, I'm meeting a bunch of people, and then I'll see like off the corner of my eye, the husband will have his camera going on his phone, and it's not sneaky, they're just being like respectful, and I'm like, I can't believe, and my wife will attest to this, she's like, why does anyone want to talk to you? But it's because I've bled.
Yeah. But I think, so it goes back to what we're talking about in that, like the connection piece, and how deeply like people just want to be seen, and they just want to be known, and they just want to know that you know them. And I want that, you know, like okay, so we started off with this post that I made, and I posted it. First of all, I auto posted it. Bad thing, because then Instagram like distorted all of the proportions.
That.
I was so mad. Yeah. Oh my God, I was so mad.
That's the internet.
Yeah.
There's all this nice work.
Like,
let me mess it up.
I was like trying to be all vulnerable, and then it messed it up. Whatever. But so I did whatever. But
just repost it.
I thought about it, but then I was like, but there's already like so many comments on it.
If I were you, I would keep it and repost it and just pin the reposted one.
That's probably a good idea.
Just so my audience can see what we're talking about.
Okay, I'll do that. And I actually went and then I rewrote what was on each post, and I pinned it in a comment.
Oh, you had your glamour headshots.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I'll maybe do that. But
by the way, look how weekend this outfit is.
Right?
Cardigan, knee brace. She's got the spandex on. That's a power weekend they're having. That guy hates it.
They're walking to Target.
We're going to get our steps in. We're going to walk from Best Buy to Target. All right, that's what you're missing out on right there. All right, anyway.
But yeah, like I just like I closed it and I closed it and wanted to vomit, but
because you exposed yourself.
Yes, and because I exposed myself, and then I sat with it because I was like, I have to remember that, like.
Is it a religious trauma thing? Is that part of the wanting to vomit? Opening up and making it about you?
Yeah, well, for me personally, just trauma. And for me, it is the religious piece in that, like, I've always, in religious spaces, vulnerability is exploited so much. So if you are open with yourself, they use that to against you, to shame you, to like hold you accountable for your sins, you know, and then they can use that to like punish you and
in high control religions, like cults like Scientology, it's clearly used as they like just want to know what your sins are so they can not leak,
make other accusations. They can demand that you do these kind of like paths of accountability and restoration and things like that.
And the pre 1-star preface is that maybe your religion is in this way, folks, but when people have this, you got to listen to it.
Yeah, and I think that, and we're not just talking Scientology. Like when I've talked to anybody inside of any high control religion, they're like, oh yeah, like it didn't matter what you shared. They would use that to say like, you're not like perfectly like okay with your body, or you feel like you've gained 10 pounds, or well, that must be like the sin of gluttony, or you're eating instead of praying. And
it goes back to them telling you what you're doing versus you just wanting someone to listen to. Right.
And just saying like, no, actually, I'm just like, I'm learning to love my body, and still I have complicated feelings about my body. Yeah. Like, that's okay. And sometimes I have insecurities, but also I love myself. Like, those can actually both exist at the same time. And I think actually a lot of people feel that way,
Right.
And also many genders feel that way. That's not just women, like that's men too.
Yet you posted and still feel sick because you're immediately like,
oh my God, I just told everybody that.
I get it. Gross. You needed to go take a shower. I can't believe this. And then what comes next?
And then I see comments of people going, oh, I can't believe you feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. And I'm like, well, you don't have to make me not feel that way. But also, thank you.
Which is a negative and simple response. That's not the right one, but it does mean well. So
so like half the responses were like, thank you so much. I feel less alone. And that makes my heart burst. Like in terms of like, wow, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad that you feel less alone. And then other people who are like, oh, you're not this, you're not that, you're this,
Which, by the way, relates back to the last season of The Bachelor when you had one person say, "I feel old." She was 31. And Maria's like, "Shut up! You don't need to feel old." So like in the moment, she meant fine. But that's what inspired the hatred.
That. And
how dare you? And it's like she wasn't trying to.
Yeah, and it's like.
But when you have comments online and 15 of those, you're like annoying.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I get it. I think you're just trying to like try to make me feel better, but I actually didn't ask you for that. I was just saying, this is just something I feel.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I feel this way. And you can feel that way or not, you know?
And since the feeling comes from within, your affirmation or whatever to this moment
actually invalidates it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, unlike the Bachelorette ladies, I don't feel bullied by that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's like they're more like micro.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say microaggression. No. It's just a micro. Ugh.
It's just I look at that as like, you know what? That's just where you're at, and that's okay. I don't feel offended by it. I don't feel put off by it. I don't feel like I need to restrict or block you. I feel like you just made a comment and that was your way that you thought you were supporting me.
And the biggest issue with social media, or one of the issues with social media, is it allows you to interact with people that might be friction to your sort of vibe. And that's fine. You just have to handle those folks and know that they're not there, but that same algorithm will continue to try to link you up with the people that will get you, like the people that was it like an epiphany moment, like, all right, maybe I have to be the sample for my audience to see how they can grow as well? What was the feeling of maybe we need to do more of this? Yeah,
I think like I said in the caption, like I've always been a bit more private, but I think that it's okay for me to maybe challenge myself a little bit more. And I will say, like, with my therapy profession, and I think I can probably speak for other therapists as well, there's been this weird, like, how much of ourselves do we share? Because I can think of other therapists that have received a lot of negative feedback of, like, things that they've shared about themselves. And sometimes they've gotten, like, reported to their boards. They're like, oh my gosh, this person shared about like what medicine they're taking, or this person, you know, wore a bikini and, you know, whatever. Like there's a therapist in Bachelor Nation who like got reported to their board for a variety of different things, where I'm just like, okay, I get that there's like a fear there, but I'm also like, maybe it's okay for therapists to share more on a public platform like that. We are humans after all.
Would you be willing to lose your license if it meant you do better work by presenting yourself to a bigger audience?
At this point in my career, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a whole other soapbox.
Because it's like if you're a lawyer and you get threatened with a thing because you're doing something that they claims not ethical, but then you find out that, you know, I'm dabbling with all these law YouTube channels. Yeah. But then by educating masses on law or therapy or whatever it is, you might be reaching a bit bigger intended audience than something you could ethically do within the narrow scope of what a therapist should. Because these therapist rules weren't written with the intention of YouTube. And
right. And so they're already so gray and murky anyways. They were never written with social media in mind. So that's already sticky. But I look at already how far we've come and how many people have already felt so seen and heard and helped as a result of therapists showing up and saying, oh, by the way, I have anxiety, I have trauma, like, I know, you know, like, here's my experience within a high control religion or whatever. And they're like, wait, what? You know, and so I'm like, there's a lot of things in my life that I don't mind sharing, you know. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, just how do I push that a little, like push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit more and say, okay, I just got to do it even more.
Yeah, you get to that weird part where you tell people to jump off this high dive, and then they're like, all right, you first. And you're like,
I know, I'm like, damn it.
I guess I got to do that. I back myself into those corners all the time where I'm like, well, here I am calling out all these other people for maybe ways that they could be better.
Yeah,
I gotta walk that walk.
Yeah.
And I think having a little accountability with that isn't a bad thing. It's kind of like how we want to tell our friends sometimes if we're gonna quit smoking, like things that people can help us. They can, community can hold you accountable. Obviously that can go into toxic areas, but
sure.
But you talked about how some people saw you live and gave you some of that warmth, and that was before you said you started opening up more. Like what could you envision happening? Well, like what's the best case scenario for either your practice or yourself with regards to your platform?
I mean, honestly, I hope to do more live stuff. I had a really great time speaking at this event, and I want to do more of that. Brings me back to my youth ministry days, which I'm still like...
I just had a former youth minister on.
Did you really?
So for everyone that gets upset if I bash religion, I've had a lot of religious people on because I'm in Nashville now.
Yeah, okay, I might need to listen to that episode.
And he's a stand-up comedian now, and he's a nice guy, Drew, and he seems to have had some bumpers that have put him in a different direction, but not to the point where he's left religion, just realizing that wasn't for him. I think it's because he was feeling control from some religious elements over not, if you're a youth minister, you shouldn't be that way. Like he felt the control from the managerial level.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. I might have to connect to them. Okay. Yeah. So when I was at this speaking event, I tapped back into a side of myself that I haven't been in for almost 20 years. And I surprised myself at how much I liked it. Oh. And I was like, oh, shoot.
Dr. Laura's got her groove back.
I know. It was like, oh, no. Yeah. So that and writing and like maybe another book.
So let's hold you accountable for our next conversation. What can we expect from you? Besides formatted Instagram photos.
Yeah, right. I know. Like, okay, by the way, y'all, do not try to auto post a carousel with music. And
it's the shittiest app. Tasha just posted something and it had a poll. She goes, I don't know why there's a poll. I made an Instagram reel and the last second of the reel was me looking at the camera because I didn't know I re-recorded something. She's like, babe, you got to take that out. I was like, I'm going to leave that for all the millennials out there. I'm going to leave that.
I'm so mad about this. Okay. Yeah, I will do better. It really but honestly, this is a growth moment because I would have pulled that shit down in my old days because it was imperfect. And so I'm like, nope, I'm just going to do this. Okay.
I was like, maybe this is a metaphor because it only has half of the story. And I'm like, oh, she wants us to figure it out on our own.
Yeah, so you can be looking for better Instagram posts.
But you got a great Instagram, though. Yeah, I mean, you're the perfect example of information and entertainment because you've given information, and now I think you're realizing, and entertainment's kind of a weird word for people. You don't need to be juggling whatever. Your entertainment is you sharing your story with the information to back it up. Yeah. That's the key to real success. Yeah. So you've already found success sharing the information, and now you've got a whole story there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is really actually what I'm trying to move towards is the story piece. And I actually have some cool data and stories coming out. Nice. I have a new book that I'm working on.
Oh yeah? Do you have a title yet or no?
I don't have a title. I thought I had a title and then I started looking at all the data and I have to totally switch directions, which means the title is going to go back into the vault. Oh, okay. And I'll have to write a whole other book to fit the title.
We got to get you on, you haven't done Off the Vine, have you?
No, I haven't.
I'll have to email you or email their producer because I think she would love hearing your story. She talks a lot about remapping from past frameworks and stuff. Yeah. So people can follow you. Is it at Dr. Laura Anderson?
Laura E. Anderson.
At Dr. Laura E. Anderson.
Yes.
On Instagram.
Look for the imperfect post.
There you go. say, Dave brought me here. Leave a comment for the algorithm.
Yeah.
In your book,
When Religion Hurts You.
When Religion Hurts You. If anyone's got any trauma from high control religion, or you just want to donate to a good cause.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can see you doing more live gigs. It sounds like that's the real.
I hope it becomes a thing because it was super fun. Yeah.
Well, we'll be there front row. We're excited. All right, thank you so much for doing the show. Let's go inside and talk to Tasha.
Yeah, it'll be good.
We made it.